And we are live.
Live.
What's up?
Not much. What's going on? I'm
Not much. You all right? You nervous?
not nervous. I just went over everything that I was kind of going to say. So now I feel like I'm going to repeat myself and leave out a lot of stuff.
Oh man. Well, today I'm joined by Matt Morgis, who was the Weekenders' youngest intern ever. How old were you when you started at the
I
Weekender?
think, I think 16. I just got my driver's license.
Oh my God. What a place to start your life. Matt Morgis, man, I haven't seen you probably since your 21st birthday.
That's right. That's one of the last times I think I was out drinking in NEPA, which was, I'm going to give away my age here, like 7 years ago now. Donos.
Well, no, I mean that was 2010, wasn't it? Or no?
Oh, I didn't turn 21 until 2013.
That was 2013. Why did I think it was 2010? I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. 2013. Man, where does the time go?
I
Where
know.
does the time go? Matt Morgis, a young 16-year-old kid interning at the Weekender. And how long were you there for? I feel like you were around for a while.
Yeah, like 3 years, I think. Because I did it, I guess we're going to get into all this. But like once I got to college at Temple in Philly, it kind of just ended, I guess, at that point because it's too far away. Tried to keep it going, doing freelance, but then I got into the computer stuff and left it behind.
That's all right. But it was an impactful 3 years for a kid your age too. I mean, like,
Yeah.
let's say you were an intern at 16. It wasn't like we went out and found you at school. I think you approached us. So tell me a little bit about how that happened, because I don't even think I know how that happened. But I mean, how does a 16-year-old
Yeah.
kid who's supposed to be in high school and you just got your driver's license, you should be like, cruising with your buddies, and instead you're looking for internships at the Weekender.
Well, that kind of happened. I got in trouble cruising with the buddies and was told, you got to go get a job. But at the same time, we had a pretty cool assignment in school where we had to go for biology class. We had to go shadow every marking period. So there's like 4 quarters in a school year. Each one we had to go job shadow someone. Which was the first time I really thought like, oh, wow, you're not going to go play professional sports. Like when you're in Little League, you're like, I'm going to go play MLB or whatever, right? And then you actually get to like junior high, high school, and they're like, well, what are you going to do when you grow up? So that was the first time they made me like in like 10th grade or whatever. They're like made everyone really think about it. Like, what are you going to go major in, or if you go to college, or are you going to go to college? What are you going to do? So I was like, shit, I have no idea. So I emailed like 97.9X and like Weekender people and stuff like that, just trying to like do my job shadowing somehow around music. Though I wasn't good enough to actually play, but I figured, all right, like I'm kind of into music and sports. So what jobs could I shadow around those two things? So I went down the music route first and got the job shadow with Jim Bone, 97.9X was the first one I did. And then I shadowed Alan Stout at the Weekender. And then he led me to another one, Eric Ritter at Windmill. And I kind of just got into this whole world. And he also led me to Gene Smith at Rock Street. So I don't know, just kind of got into it from there. So I shadowed Alan for a day, had to write a report about it. And Alan threw me to the staff meeting. When I was at the staff meeting, you guys were talking about Weekender sessions and starting it up. And the next day I emailed in and said like, hey, I was kind of interested in that project, would be down to like help out if you could. And you guys let me come in and help out.
I don't even remember you coming to the staff meeting.
Yeah, I think I was telling you a story before this, where at the end of it, I tried to like speak up a little bit when you guys were talking about the session thing. And I was like, I just saw this like, concert from a beach in California streamed on Facebook. Like, it'd be really cool if we could live stream those or something. And everyone just like got up and walked away mid-sentence. And like, no one. I was just like invisible. I was like, am I invisible here? What's going on?
Well, I mean, how were you even introduced to the? I mean, that sounds like it was weird.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I wasn't speaking up much or people just didn't care what I had to say, but I thought it was a funny moment.
I don't think that's the case.
I specifically remember Steve just getting up and walking away, which was funny. Lelo, same thing, because I was kind of talking to Lelo because he was the one talking about it, and he just got up and went to his desk. I was like, all right, then, well. So I still carried through and emailed the next day and was persistent about it, which is funny. I was probably some nervous kid. I was scared out of my mind because I was shadowing Alan for the day, and he dropped me off up there, and then he kind of like disappeared for the meeting. I thought he was going to be there. So then I was just sitting there with all these people. My mom made me wear a tie that day for the job shadow. She's like, oh, newspaper people wear ties. And then Steve comes over in jeans. You came over in like jeans and a t-shirt. Lelo was wearing jeans. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm overdressed. I'm this weird kid here.
Well, it sounds strange that Alan would have just come up, dropped you off, and then left you.
Well, I don't know if that was his plan or what happened there. That was really cool job shadow. So in the morning we did the interview. We interviewed John Canjar from Nowhere Slow,
Mhm.
and then in the afternoon after lunch we like wrote the story. So I got to see him like do the interview and put it together. And that was pretty much my only training because I like wrote some stories for the Weekender, and that was the only time I didn't take college class or anything. So like when I did it, it was pretty much like that was what I had to go off of. I watched him transcribe the thing, add like the bits in and kind of sew it all together. And I was like, all right, so that's what I had to work off of. And then I got better with like training from Mike and everyone else that was there. But I kind of had one job shadow. And then as I interned and got more responsibilities, that's what I had to lean on.
I think it's crazy that a 16-year-old kid was an intern, or I mean, job shadowing is one thing, but like you became like an official part of the staff almost.
Well,
And
yeah. So I was going to say, once I kind of like realized like, uh, not going to play pro sports, right? I kind of like,
you're not.
was,
You realize you were 5 foot, like what,
yeah,
9?
9. Yeah, I was going to say that's generous. And no one else obviously was playing any kind of like college sports or anything, like barely D3 and stuff. So I was like, okay, this isn't happening for anyone, not going to happen for me. And that's when I started to get scared to death of just like, what am I going to do? So that's why I was like, well, I don't even know if I'm going to like that. I don't know how much money's in it, because every time you Google like anything around those careers, like what I really wanted to do was work a soundboard, right? You know, I was looked at the album things when you're a kid, like liner notes, and you see like produced by, engineered by. But when you look that stuff up, they like make garbage money, even when you're doing it for like big bands. So I was like, well, let's see what this is about and like see if I can learn it and stuff. And that's the thing, but like the end of it, I mean, I was doing sound and like working those gigs and like even doing freelance stuff for papers and getting paid what freelancers do. And I couldn't even survive in college. So I was like, all right, I got to kind of get out of this business here.
Well, it's a shame. That's a shame.
What was cool was that my freshman year of college, and we'll get into this, like I was like, I got to find a job down here in Philly. And like having that on my resume, having 3 years of like legit experience of learning how to email people, communicate, like work with other people on complete projects and stuff was like put me way ahead of the pack. I feel like it's still moving me up the ladder in my current job just because like I had that experience in the bag before everyone else my age.
Morgis, before we get further, I'm drying up here, and this is a Weekender Files episode. So I hope you came prepared with a drink.
I got Philly Special, Philadelphia Pale Ale,
All right.
Yards Brewing Company. I'm sure you can get this up there.
Yeah, of course. I'm sticking with the tried and true Coors Light. Mountain cold refreshment made to chill.
Yeah, I went with the 4%er instead of like a nice heavy IPA. It's just it's early.
Yeah, it's a marathon today, Morgis.
Yeah.
It's early. It's early late afternoon. I got the.
I almost grabbed a second because this is gonna go down quick, but I got it right down the fridge. So I run and grab it quick. We'll need two. I might need two.
I brought a backup. I came prepared. This is not my first one.
Yeah.
But so I mean you and I wasn't as involved with your work at the Weekender as much as like Mike Lillo was.
Yeah.
But I feel like I remember you doing some pretty cool things, you know, interviewing some pretty big bands, and then having some kind of involvement in Warped Tour.
Yeah. So obviously it wasn't a traditional internship. It wasn't like a traditional one where college kids come in for 3 or 6 months, write a bunch of stories. And like, it's like a, you know, I emailed in and was asking about Weekender sessions. Was like, I'd love to be involved in that project in some sense and like participate somehow. And that's when Rachel, it was like, yeah, sure. Work with Mike on it. It's kind of Mike's baby. And that's where that developed. And then actually that I got into kind of doing more than just that. Was I had an English teacher in high school who had like a wiffle ball league of some kind. And like, I think they raised money for charity or something. And he asked me like, can you get the Weekender to write about it? They wrote about it in the past. We got a pretty good turnout after that happened. Can you get him to do it? So when I pitched it to Mike, I think Mike was like, why don't you write it? Or maybe I asked one of the ways. But I was like, all right. So I interviewed the commissioner of the wiffle ball league and wrote up this like wiffle ball story. And then after that, cause like, I don't think Mike ever like assigned me anything. It was always just stuff me just like asking like, hey, this band's coming to town. If I, you know, can I try to get an interview? And if I get it, can we run it or something? And like, sometimes he would just run stuff online only, basically, probably to just keep me busy and out of his hair. But I'd be like, can I review this concert? And be like, sure. And it would just run online only. But it was awesome because I got to, you know, go through the process of emailing the publicist, getting the review tickets, taking photos, all that stuff.
Was that scary for you? Is I mean, like again, you're like a 16-year-old kid, and like, yeah, Mike's like, yeah, go contact this person, and you're a kid. I mean,
yeah, I mean, again, he wasn't like demanding any of it. It was always me just being like, hey, this band's coming. A lot of it was honestly me want to go to the show and not have any money to buy tickets. So I was like, oh, if I write a review and take photos, I get to still see the band. So that was cool. And yeah, it was a pretty good life hack, I guess, to get concert tickets in high school.
Life hack.
I got
Now,
to
I mean,
work I was going to say, one of the things I did was that music first stage, which was pretty cool. Weekender was a sponsor for it, a side stage at Montage. So oftentimes I was booking the bands. Like Mike would give me the list, say reach out to these bands for these dates, and like schedule them to, told them what time to show up and all that stuff. Announced them, did prizes and giveaways and stuff, and then all that was before the gates opened. So then when the gates opened, I had a little sticker and I was able to go in. And so, several times I was able to bring a buddy that helped out and like whatever, and then we got to go in too. So that was pretty cool too. Like working with the Live Nation people. Live Nation even then gave me posters to put up, and they would give me free tickets to like shows in Hershey and stuff in Philly. I got Blink-182 tickets my freshman year here in Philly because I put up posters for it. So it led to a lot of different connections and stuff.
I feel like you probably became pretty popular amongst your friends. Like this is the kid with the ticket hookup.
I feel like the opposite, because normally if I could get anyone in, it would be like one person, and then I was probably like the weird, obnoxious kid that was like doing this stuff. Like I don't know. I'm looking back, I feel like I was probably the weird kid.
The weird kid doing what?
Like real job stuff. Like I wasn't being a kid. I don't know.
That's true. That is true. There is that angle. If you want to, yeah. I mean, there is that. Look at the nerd, overachiever.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm. Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, you are where you are today because of your desire to achieve.
Right. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do. I got into video editing, and the reason I kind of got into programming now is because no one knew how to do anything with the website. I remember Lello all the time was like, "Oh, I wish the website could do this or that or that." No one knew how to do it, and I remember like going to Temple, and it wasn't even like one of my like I don't know, it was one of those gen ed classes. Temple had a really cool pro. Here's a plug for Temple. They owe me some money.
Well, you were in the sweatshirt, so I mean,
yeah, this is a nice sweatshirt. They have a really cool program where basically instead of doing like calculus or biology or chemistry as like your basic gen ed classes, they'll do like chemistry of wine or like sports statistics and stuff. So like the whole chemistry class, you're just fermenting wine and making wine. Or the whole math class, you're just like calculating different sports statistics and being like a Moneyball GM for the semester. So they try to do stuff that like gets people interested in the application of those things rather than just like teaching you it. So my science class, I signed up for like one that taught you how to make a website. So the whole semester you're learning how to make a website, and that kind of was one of my 2 science classes I had to take. And the first day the teacher was like, "You switch your major to computer science, you could be building these websites full time and make a ton of money doing it." She's like, "I guaranteed a salary and everything, like job before you graduate." Literally walked out and changed my major. I was like, I could be a guy, like instead of the guy that edits videos or writes stories or whatever, I could be like some freelance web guy. So it still kind of fit the mold of like what I came out of the Weekender from. And I was like, and no one knew at the Weekender how to do any of this stuff. I could probably make a ton of money doing it just even back home. So it kind of like led to, everything I'm doing today.
that's wild. Did you party in college? I mean, I feel like you were always like so focused on your career. Like, did you just,
once that happened, yeah. So I switched my major to computer science freshman year. That's when I like stopped writing stories and stuff for the weekend. I tried to do it, actually it was pretty funny. I also worked, so the Weekender internship led to like a formal summer internship at Go Lackawanna, my summer before college, which was awesome because I got a byline on the front page of the Times Leader for a court case I covered. Someone spray painted rat on some guy's car, and I wrote about it, and the Times Leader ran off the front page. But when I did the internship for Go Lackawanna, Chris Hughes was the editor, and he was like, "I will email you police blotter stuff, and like, will you put the police blotter together every week?" Because it was a Sunday paper that came out. So Saturday morning, I'd wake up super early, really hungover, and write the police blotter. I think he kind of caught on because he stopped sending them to me. But I was trying to like, do freelance stuff for Go Lackawanna, and at this point, I was no longer really an intern, but I was like actually paid by the Weekender to write some freelance stuff, like album reviews and stuff. But trying to do that with school, and then knowing I was not really doing that anymore at the major, I kind of gave it up. But right away, I was like, I got to find a job now in my field. That's where I'm working now. So I got an internship at my current company my freshman year of college, still working there today. So once I had that, the rest of college was a breeze because they were paying me They actually paid me for my internship, unlike you guys. So they're paying
Whoa,
me good
whoa, whoa,
money.
Morgus. So let's relax. That wasn't on me. So it was like, don't like. Oh man, that hurt. Jeez.
Oh my gosh! I was like, wait a minute, tech? They pay you for your internship? And they're like, yeah. And it was like $25 an hour or something as a freshman in college.
Wow,
I was
that's pretty
rich.
wild. Yeah,
Uh,
you're
yeah.
rolling.
So, and then that just continued. So then, yeah, I got to actually really party. Like when everyone turns 21, no one has money for the bars, but I was like,
You're rolling.
shots, yeah, $1 beers, let's go. For everyone.
Just so you know, Morgus, I did an internship at the Weekender also, and I did not get paid either. So let's pump the brakes a little bit.
I remember going down to Philly, right, and like thinking, okay, different media market now, bigger media market. Am I gonna have to start from zero? Like, are the 3 years I just put in at the Weekender like basically gonna not mean anything like down here now? And I was very concerned about that because like a lot of people, like I was talking to seniors and stuff, they do the orientation, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, I'm working for CBS Philly right now, and they're paying me $8 an hour to like run the camera." And I'm like, "What?" And then over here, they're like, "Oh, we pay 25 an hour for your internship." I was like, "What am I doing?" Like, it's crazy how like tech obviously has an absurd amount of money, and that's pretty much what it is. I have no interest in programming, no interest in actually making websites, but it was just like a money grab pretty much, and like I'm okay at it, so it worked out.
And what exactly do you do now?
I'm on a clinical data processing team for a company that publishes a ton of medical info. So we publish like medical journals, textbooks, and like we write a bunch of. I work in like the department of the company that makes that info available to like actual doctors and pharmacists and stuff. But again, boring tech job, pays the bills. Not really. So I also like freelance and like build websites and stuff outside of it. Obviously, a lot less the last year or two. As you get older, I feel like those little side hustles die down a little bit. But that's where like the fun projects come in, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, like you get older and it's like, is this really worth my time?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're married now too. Like, oh my, like it's crazy to think about, Matt Morgis as a 16-year-old kid to like Matt Morgis now.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but I was going to say, just brought it up. So the freelance stuff definitely has died down since the marriage happened.
That's what they'll do to you, man.
But I think that's what happens, right?
They'll crush your spirits.
Well, it's just kind of more like I'd rather hang on the couch and drink wine than sit at my computer for 3 more hours.
Good cover. Good cover, Morgus. I taught you well.
But I was going to say, I do remember you specifically telling me not to get a girlfriend in college, like really giving me the lecture before I went down. And I actually remember hitting you up when we started dating, and you're like, "How old are you now?" I told you, you're like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Well, it's funny because like I remember you like talking about college, and I was adamant about, yes, I said, do not wife up your first or second year of college. I said, enjoy it, have fun. Like, I'm not saying go around and be a womanizer by any means. I'm just saying there's so much about college that you can be experienced, but like, and not that women. This goes for females too. This is not just a male oriented thing. This is like, I don't believe a female should get tied down early, just because like it's just human nature. When you meet somebody, you kind of focus on them, and you spend your time with them, and you just kind of, not that you forget about friends, but it's just different.
It is. I know there was a guy, my roommate freshman year, dated a girl first 2-3 years, and I broke up like right at the end of college, and like, yeah, I don't know, I don't want to name names. I feel like I'm already giving away too much info for my friends.
But I mean, yeah, you spend 3 years of, and you're looking back at that, man, I wasted my good years of college. You probably party less, you probably, hang out with friends less. You're probably just like, I always like, those experiences are just like on the fly. Like, you never know what's going to happen. It's just like things are just so, I don't know.
That's hilarious. I remember sitting around freshman year specifically discussing this and giving my friends the same advice, and them countering with, especially the guy that dated the girl, like, after college, where else do you meet someone? Like, you're left to bars and that's it. And they're like, at that point, all the good ones are taken. I was like, oh.
It's amazing that we think that way. Like, oh my God. Like I met my wife. I was 4 years into my 3 or 4 years into my career. There's time, but looking back at the kid you're talking about, like I said, not wasted. I don't want to say that. I mean, everything's an experience. Everything is a a learning experience. But I mean, I remember you reaching out to me too, saying like, "Hey, I met this girl. She's really great." And I remember, asking you like, "Well, how old are you? What year are you in now?" It's like, yeah, I mean, if you didn't have fun in your first 2 years, like you're not gonna have fun. Like just end it now.
Oh, yeah, well, it worked out. I mean, it kind of worked out. We're together now. Those classic.
Kind of worked out. I hope so, buddy. You're married.
I mean, we literally got married 2 weeks when the world shut down. So scheduled at the end of March and mid March, everything shut down. So we've literally been married just about 1 year now of COVID times, which I feel like there has to be some equation of like 1 year COVID times equals 2 or 3 years in normal marriage, something like that.
Well,
Especially
you're write the code, Morgus.
we're in a tiny row home in Philly too. Both working at home on Zooms all the time. It's been a fun first year.
I mean, if you can make it through that, buddy, I think you're set.
I know that's what we've been saying, right? Yeah, things go back to normal. Should be.
Yeah, and then you got married and you didn't spend a ton of money.
Yeah, we got to figure that out because we rescheduled it for March of this year. That's not looking too good.
No, I wouldn't count on that unless you're outside. But March outside, it's not going to work. That's not going to work.
Nope. So yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do. There's a downfall, right? Because you don't have the big ceremony, you don't get all the family wedding money that normally comes in, friends and family.
But you're not spending the money, Morgus. That's the problem. See, when you have a wedding, right? And people don't know this. So like,
see, this is the advice that I got when I was 16 at the weekender. That put me ahead of other people.
yes.
Let's go. We'll share it with everyone.
No, so when you have a wedding, right? Typically, and the rule of thumb is, the guest and most don't know this. The guest should give you a gift that covers the cost of their dinner.
Yes, I heard that, and we were
Right.
realizing that's not the case for a lot of people.
Well, the thing is, not everyone knows how much this shit costs because back in the day it was cheap. It was $25 a plate. A couple can give you $50 and they covered their meal, right? No. I mean, now it's 130, 140, 150 open bar. Like it's a huge expense. And yeah, you definitely don't make your money back. Not that that's what it's about, but
that we were praying, like, are we going to break even on this? How does this work? So yeah, that's the debate now. So we're like, do we actually just reschedule this thing again, or should we just like put our money into a house of some kind? I don't know. We got a debate, man. We got like, I'm into living in the city.
Here's my recommendation.
To the suburbs with a yard and a fence, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I got to take a train to work instead of walking. So that's the next big decision. I don't know if you get advice on that one.
Well, I mean, you don't have a choice. That's what marriage is.
Moving to the suburbs.
You just say yes, whatever you want, and move on with your day. No, but what I would recommend is, I would say do it back home in northeastern Pennsylvania. Do it outside. Get it catered. And we'll get into this. Get it like catered by like a barbecue guy.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if anyone knows anyone.
I don't know. So no, but I mean that's the way to go. Or go to a what do you call it? Like a PAV. They have like it's cheap. You rent it out for the day. It's cheap. There's like you can get a covered building or a covered outside pavilion.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
It's cheap. That's the thing. We already had a small because it was so expensive, like you said. We had to cap it and only invite certain people. I don't know. It's a mess, but we're obviously not the only ones that are going through it. Could be a lot worse though. We luckily just didn't have to spend a lot of money. That's the worst that happened for our 2020. So.
Morgus, you're rolling though. I mean, you're making that big tech money. You just said it. So open your pockets up and let's go.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it sucked, but I don't know. I'm trying to keep it in perspective because I know people are hurting these days.
Well, the wedding industry is hurting, Morgus. Don't you want to help support them?
Oh my gosh,
Don't be so selfish.
Dude, the venue just like didn't won't give it away, but they've been like 7 months just completely ignoring us now. I don't know if they're like got a business or what. Yeah, I mean, people on like their Instagram, like they'll post every once in a while on Instagram and the comments are just like, you ever gonna call us back? So I can't even imagine. I mean, especially down here with I think we're a little bit more restricted than up your way, and I don't think they've been able to even do many outside events like over the past few months. So I can't imagine.
Yeah, what's it like in Philly?
So indoor dining just opened up again. So I've seen a lot of some restaurant. I don't know. It's weird. We have some restaurants around us that just kind of like haven't closed for good, but haven't opened up. They're just like, we're gonna be on hiatus for a bit. Once it got cold and they couldn't really do the outdoor dining. So I don't know. It's kind of dead. Not really. It's one of the debates we have. I don't know about you guys, but I've been like programmer working from home this whole time, and now don't know if we're ever gonna have to go back to the office. So without all the conveniences of the city, this is the first time we're like thinking suburbs might make sense. But then who knows? This summer everything can go back to normal, and
Well, yeah, and that's one thing you got to think about too, because that's what everyone's doing. I mean, that's everyone was fleeing New York City to the suburbs, and I don't think that that's ever going to be the same, not for a long time, anyways.
yeah, I mean that's our debate. I'm like, if I don't ever have to go back to the office, then yeah, let's go get a big place because we're always home. But if I got to commute again, the suburbs here, you got like an hour train ride into the city.
Yeah,
2 hours a day. I don't know. I'm not ready for that yet.
that's a big decision because I mean, as you get older too. I mean, the last thing you want to do is spend an hour or even two there, and then another hour or two home. That's 4 hours of your day, just like. I mean, thankfully we have like technology where you can have your phone and get work done or
That's what
whatever.
people do. Yeah, yeah. It's normally it's like no more than an hour train ride, so it's normally like 2 hours a day. Yeah, but like,
A lot.
or yeah, but some people that haven't. Oh, that's, I want to get too far on a tangent here, but yeah, some people got like 20-minute, 30-minute train drive to the train or to the train station, then an hour train ride. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's weird because we pretty much proven for the past year we don't need to really physically all be together, but I do miss some of it. Like, I feel like there's a lot more formality to talk to people now. Like even me and you now, it's just like, oh, we got to get on a Zoom, etc. Like that's how it is at work. And normally you just turn your chair around and talk to someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been in an office since June, so I don't know what that's like. Thank God too, because the first 3 months were, or two or 3 months. It was tough, man.
Yeah, what was it like working from home with a kid? Because I got coworkers that have to do it. I don't have to, and they're
Dude.
Struggling.
It's a battle because like you're still expected to do work, right? Then you have this tiny human that you have to make sure doesn't jump off the couch and break their neck off the coffee table, right? And it's weird, and I feel very terrible for like the moms and dads, and I don't know how it works because these kids who are doing virtual learning, like how does that work? With a mom and a dad who both have to work, like who teaches their kids, who stays home with the kids, and then you think about like a single mother who has to work, who the same thing. Like how does it work? I have no idea.
Yep.
I'm very thankful that my kid's in daycare and he still attends daycare because my wife and I both work. Um, but I don't know what we would do otherwise. I have no clue.
Yeah, yeah, it was interesting. I've like looked into some jobs that are remote only, and I never really like pulled the trigger, right? 'Cause I'm pretty happy at my current gig. I don't want to say anything like that. And kind of got a taste of it now. And I'm like, and people say this isn't really working from home, but I'm like, I don't know. Something about that office life that first few months, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I just put my head down, get my stuff done here without anyone like bothering me. But now after a year, I'm like, boy, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the office that like you just miss out on after a while.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same if you're home.
We could,
maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I was just home by myself. But even then, like
oh God, yeah,
I'm very social. I like people. Like I like most people.
yeah.
Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I hate most people and like some.
I was gonna say that could be a good segue into like I've heard talk about it on other podcasts, just like the team environment that was at the weekend. Uh, like what's Lelo called us out too, I guess. I keep in touch with the most people from that, even though I'm still so young, than I do from any like I've had so many people come and go on my current job that like I don't know, Facebook friend maybe here and there, but like never really reach out or see them or anything. In fact, I got like several contacts still, close friends. Like it says something about like the camaraderie about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like at the weekender there was. I mean, we always had the right people in place, and like even when we didn't, those people didn't last long. I mean, I know there's probably 3 or 4 people that I can remember that joined the team, and it was like, how did you even get here? Like, how did you
Well,
make it past the gate? Because you're not going to work here.
This is something I kind of wanted to bring up because when I was there, I thought everyone was one big happy family. Everyone loved each other. It was like this awesome environment. And then when Lello left, that was kind of the first time I heard like there was a lot of inside drama there that I was not really aware of, I guess. And then listening back to some of these, I'm like, holy shit, maybe, I mean, I guess that is kind of like a family, right? Every family's got like issues and stuff, but like, yeah, funny you say that about certain people that didn't quite fit in and stuff. Because to me, and I'm sure the people on the outside that weren't necessarily working there thought everyone was one big cohesive group, almost like a little clique you got it going on.
And we were for the most part. It's weird. It was a family, like you said. I mean, people
But,
just we'd fight like family because we were around each other all the time, and it wasn't like a big company where like I would see you, on a Monday and then not see you again until next Friday. Like we'd see each other every single day, and like the staff like what 10 maybe.
and I feel like, well, yeah, I feel like maybe because everyone's so close, that led to some of those moments, right? At my current job, there's never been any as intense things like that because no one really gets too close to one another, I feel like. But
Yeah,
there's also a lot of like after hour things, going to bars, weekend events and stuff like that that you typically do with friends that you had to do for work. So I guess that kind of led to, I would imagine,
yeah,
friendship like
and
that.
we were friends. I mean, I think you know more people drifted apart after the weekender was over than we did like during it. Like we were always just so close, and
Yeah, because I was gonna say the flip side of it is that like I still go to a show every summer with Lalo. Obviously, we still chat a lot. Still work with Chris Hughes a lot. Like throughout, anytime I pretty much need any, just like actually, you were putting together maybe it was the shirts for the scene or whatever. You're like, who do you use for vectors? And I was like, I still use Chris. Like Chris does a lot of illustrations and stuff for me. Uh, I host Rich's website, which constantly is falling over because like the traffic is like this, and then every once in a while goes up and tips the server over. So he's texting me like once a week, telling me to restart it, reboot it. But yeah, it's kind of crazy just how much I'm still in touch with people, or even people we worked with there, didn't directly work with at the weekend there, compared to I don't know hundreds of people I've worked with here in Philly that I'm not anywhere close to. Like
yeah, and I think that goes to along with it being your first gig and your first. I don't know. I'm in my opinion, anyways. Like
because I did think that like once I started working down here, I was like, maybe I shouldn't be as like close to everyone. I was like 16. You guys were my friends.
well, here's the thing too. Like when you're single and just so involved with it, it's easy to kind of immerse yourself into that life, whether it's the people you work with or the job you're actually doing, and it's easy to go above and beyond and work Saturdays, work at night, all that kind of stuff. But then you get older, you get married, and you have kids. It's like,
Right.
well, I mean, this is more important right now. Right now, like it's my wife's more important than working on a Saturday, and my kids obviously more important than working at night and things like that. So it's things change. It's funny how, and that's why I told you, in your first couple years of college, I said just have fun, man, because you don't get those years back. You don't. And I'm not saying it's not a knock on people who fell in love freshman year and are happily married today. Like I mean, it does happen. I think it's very rare, but I mean, you don't get those years back.
Yeah.
There's one thing you don't get back in life is, and it's time.
One thing that just dawned on me was so I mentioned I got involved doing sound, and I was actually the band Go-Go Gadget, which would play deep every once in a while.
Yeah.
I would sound for them down here, and again before I was 21. So I was getting into like some of the biggest bars down here in Philly, Fieldhouse, Mad River, on like Friday, Saturday nights. I wasn't actually like doing sound; I was just setting their stuff up and tearing it down. So through the whole time, I was able to go to the bar, get the band discount on the beers and everything, drink before I was 21. And I feel like all that, like that was when it switched. When I was in high school, I was like the overachiever nerd. In college, I was kind of like the kid that knew how to get some alcohol because I had some money. I had like hookups to get into the bars, like whatever. I remember some that sneaking my friends in. I feel like I learned all those shenanigans from my 3 years.
And if you were wifed up, you probably wouldn't have done that.
I had some good times because I remember there were times like I don't want to call him out, but a certain drummer friend of ours would let me just carry his drums to the door, and then I'd get into like the jazz cafe at night for the night to see a band.
I have no idea who you're talking about. Not a clue. Not one.
There was a Yeah, a special Nirvana show one time. I like helped set up, and then I was just inside for it. Put all the tricks away to anyone else young listening to this.
Yeah. And you know what? I feel like you interviewed, I think I may have already said this, but I think I may have done some research on you. I'm not gonna lie to you. But
It's still out there. Like I can't find any of my own stuff. There's some old YouTube videos, which I have funny stories.
there's some of that, but I feel like you interviewed Train,
Yeah,
Lewis Black.
Bruce Black was a fun one.
I mean, those are like, you're a young kid and you're
Yeah.
interviewing these big, huge names. Like,
So yeah, I mean, Train was one of the lead singer. It was like the bass player or the drummer or something, right? So like it was somewhat underwhelming but cool at the same time because they had "Hey Soul Sister" on the radio at the time, so everyone knew that song. We're playing Montage, so obviously a big deal too because enough people were coming to see him for that. But yeah, Lewis Black was cool because that was one of my, and that's the thing is like a lot of the stuff was like I interviewed Tom from Blink 182, which was kind of like the goal, right? It was like I just pretty much wanted to use this to talk to my favorite musicians, I guess. But Lewis Black was one of my favorite comedians. So when he was coming, I like begged low, like, is anyone gonna interview him? Can I do that one? So told me to go for it. Got the reply back, and like that's when I kind of realized, like, I don't know, it's kind of the inside, I don't know, inside story behind a lot of this stuff because he was like screaming, doing his rants, and then he'd be like, "Was that one all right? You want me to redo it? Like, was that funny enough?" And I was like, "Oh, like it's all an act, right? Like it's not. He's not just like this angry grump, right? Having a heart attack every day with every issue that comes up." But yeah, I don't know. It was kind of, they say don't meet your heroes and stuff, and like there was definitely some of that when you interview some of these people because someone's a jerk or whatever, that it kind of like changes your perception about it. But you also realize like they're not all living glamorous lifestyles, right? Like I interviewed a lot of these people that were coming to like smaller clubs or like the cultural center or something, and they're rolling through on vans, like eating Taco Bell, like counting the money and cash they're getting from the venue to like putting the gas and stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, like these people are on the radio and stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're rolling in it. And then if you want to work for a band like that, like those merch guys, sound guys, they were getting pretty much jack shit. And I've kind of opened my eyes to like, oh wow, this is not as glamorous as I guess I thought, which was pretty much the whole goal, I think, of the internship and stuff, was to try to get exposed to this career and see if like that was something I could do. So I think it succeeded.
yeah, it's pretty cool that your high school kind of pushed you in that direction because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think it's wise for us to push, for society to push kids who are 18 years old into college and force them to decide, hey, this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
This was probably the best school assignment I had because I remember him saying, giving a statistic that said like 92% of college freshmen change their major by the time they finish graduating with a different major than what they started with. So this was biology class that made us do 4 job shadows and write a report about. So I feel like this teacher knew like biology is not necessarily the most important thing. Getting these kids in 10th, 11th grade thinking about what the hell they're going to do in 2 or 3 years was like the goal. And it did. It worked. I mean, like I had put no thought into it and was basically ignoring it, maybe confront it, and then find like some cool, gigs around town that I might be interested in doing it. And kind of made me realize, like, I remember Jim Bone, this stuck out too. Jim Bone's like, what's your favorite subject? And I was like, probably like math or science. He's like, dude, if math or science is your favorite subject, get the hell away from here. Like he was like, go as far away as you can. He was like basically selling me on not doing the job. He's like, I wake up at 4 a.m. I got to go to bed by 8:30. If I fall asleep at 9:30, I'm miserable. Like I can't go out and see any friends at night. Like I'm always tired. And like, just like, I'm thinking like this guy's morning radio show, listening to him all the time, hilarious. And he's like, don't do this stuff. Like if you like math and science, go do something else.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, I've obviously worked with a lot of radio guys and they love what they do, but they're also like, if you could do something else, do it. Is my kid like, can you hear?
Yeah, it was funny. He was like, here's some like 16-year-old kid who's like interested in math and he wants to like be a morning radio guy. He was like, no. So I remember like thinking like, why the hell is this guy doing this? Like, this is totally what I would do. He had a big soundboard in front of him. I'm like, you know how to work that thing. You got to be a genius. And yeah, I mean, like eventually, like I said, I kind of got into it more and saw like a lot of those sound guys and stuff aren't really making a whole lot. Even the ones like, there's a guy down here in Philly that I interviewed for the Weekender, and he recorded like Title Fight, Tiger's Jaw, stuff like that. And like in the interview, he was telling me like how much in debt he is because of the studio, and like how a lot of his stuff is like he's slowly like paying it back off to like get to the point where he'll own all the equipment and stuff, and like he's not leasing it anymore and stuff. And I was just like, holy shit, like yeah, to like really do this and like work with even those type of bands, like takes a lot of investment, a lot of equipment, and unless those bands have like a big record label behind it, they don't have a ton of money to throw at you for it.
And speaking about bands, you organized a benefit at the Woodlands with the band Quietdrive, who I'm a big fan of, right?
And oh boy, what lessons came out of that?
Yeah, let's talk about that because I had no involvement in that other than I think I helped announce a band the night of the show.
That's because you were the only person there.
Well,
Yeah,
me and Matt Chmielewski.
yeah.
There's pictures
So
to prove it.
yeah, same with AJ.
But
The announcement too.
so Quiet Drive had a huge hit. I think it was 2006. They covered Time After Time. I think you did this in 2010.
To a 17-year-old kid booking a band that has song on the radio was a big deal. They had song on the radio. Who wouldn't want to come out to see them? Turns out no one.
Who? All right. So you organized this benefit. Who was the benefit for? Or what was the benefit for?
So one of the things that Rachel was a GM, right? And I was like, she was the one I emailed saying like, hey, I'd be interested in working on this project. So when she brought me in, saying like you could work on sessions, she brought the music first thing, I think. And she had said like they do a cystic fibrosis benefit, I think at the Jazz Cafe. She did something where I worked with her at one point. We booked a ton of DJs. That was like one of the first things they did. She gave me like a list of DJs and their phone numbers. Like call them, see if they could do this other benefit. I forget what the cause was for. And she suggested like after you help me with some of these benefits, you should like maybe do your own. It's like cool. So local pizza place guy, owner of a local pizza shop where my family would get their pizza every Friday, had a daughter with this disease called Rett syndrome. So instead of just doing like general American Red Cross or whatever, I was like, oh, let's do this. Like that's something no one really knows about. Like they have a whole foundation or whatever. So that's what I picked as my benefit thing. And she told me that like if you're gonna go local bands, I think she said you got to get like a ton of them. Like you got to get like 10 of them on a thing or whatever, and like have a bunch of them because they only each draw so many people to make it work. So then she said the other option is like you could get a bunch of sponsors and like pay for a band. And me being an ambitious, like cocky kid was like, yeah, let's like everyone's doing benefits with local bands, whatever. Let's like go get someone that like national. So I remember emailing all these booking agents. They're emailing back like, have you ever done the show before? I'm like, no, never hear from them again. So they were one of the only ones that actually replied to me and like negotiated and whatever. So it's pretty cool though. I mean, I had to go around a bunch of businesses, going around time after time, asking if they were interested in sponsoring. You probably know how this goes being in sales where people will tell me like, yeah, come back tomorrow. I come back the next day, they're not even there. And then they kind of ghost me. Yeah.
Checks in the mail.
So, but I did. I mean, I raised like, I think like 4,000. I raised more money in sponsorship than I raised from the concert, obviously, from like ticket sales and stuff. But made enough to cover the bands, cover their flights. So they came in to essentially play for free, right? Like that was kind of the goal. It was like have no expense. And then all the money we make from the ticket sales was there. So I got enough sponsorship to cover sound, cover the bands, cover their flights, which was cool. The Woodlands was nice enough to donate hotel rooms, and they charged me one cent to rent the ballroom. And literally when we were there setting up, the woman came and like tried to collect the thing. She's like, you need to sign this thing, and it's literally 1 cent. It's like I'm gonna die. I think I gave him $1. Like I thought it was a joke. So yeah, I mean, lots of lessons learned about just that industry, promoting, like how just to like deal with money, talk to people, reach out, cold call, I mean, all that stuff came into play. So I wouldn't say it was a failure in that sense where I learned a lot, but like the concert itself was a pretty big bust.
Yeah, nothing's a failure. What's that saying?
The failure as long as you learn something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, dude, I was, mentioned I freelance and build my own websites. And I was doing like a first big project, like 5-figure contract kind of thing on my own outside of work. And basically went a little too ambitious because I sold them on like, yeah, I have my own business. This is what I do. Da, 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 da. So they were like, this wasn't like building a website for you or someone who like, if I send you a text message with a screenshot of like what I'm building at 10:30 at night, you're not going to get upset.
Right.
They were like normal business working 9 to 5, and I'm working nights and weekends on the shit. So they're sending me stuff all day. Can we get an update on this? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, holy shit. It was stressful. Like trying to do that with a full-time job. And it just took me way longer. I told them like, oh, this would be done in 5 months, maybe 6 months tops. And like 10 months later, the site was like they wanted this whole like warehouse management system. It was like a whole big thing. Like 10 months in, we were like maybe halfway done. And they're like, what is going on here? And I mean, I kind of just rolled in my sleeves, like finished it, got it through, ended up continuing working with them for like a couple more years. But like I was constantly during that time looking back on that concert, just being like, that sucked, got through it, I'm like, this sucks now, but like we'll get through it and like you learn from it. And that was going through my head then, was like, I don't think that concert was a failure. I don't think this was a failure because I learned what I can take on, what I can do, et cetera, how to work with like these clients in the future. And like, I don't know, all of it, again, just because kind of like I got a head start working in a real company instead of like flipping burgers or whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to ask you wasn't there some kind of weird request that the band had with like some kind of like socks?
I don't remember this at all. Oh boy. You're begging
I think I remember hearing like they wanted like a pair of like
you know what, now that you're saying this, I feel like they sent a rider and
yeah
like ridiculous shit. And I remember like Will Beekman maybe, or maybe Tom Delvecchio, someone from like that actually promoted shows for real. I remember bringing this up to them and they're like, oh my gosh, they're like, we just cross all that stuff out or we just never do it. And I remember actually asking one of the band's managers, like, is this really expected? And they're like, no one ever does it. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, they were like, I think that was kind of just like giving me a break as a kid. And they were just like, no, you don't have to stress about this. But I actually, now you're saying this, I do actually remember Rachel reading that stuff, being like, there's no freaking way I'm signing this contract with all this in it. And then me asking, I think that's when I asked the manager, I'm like, yeah, you could just strike it all out. It's fine.
That's funny. No, but you learned a lot. I mean, I feel like there's some of the stuff that you're saying, like you learned more than I did as a 25-year-old at 16, 17 years old.
So at Temple, we have 2 college graduations because it's such a big school. They have one giant ceremony where every year Bill Cosby would speak until my year because he was in jail. We got Kevin Nagandi from ESPN, Temple grad. So they have one giant one where they fill the basketball arena with everyone, and they have like the keynote speaker, but they don't call everyone's name because that would be ridiculous. So they have like an hour ceremony or whatever. Then they break you off the next day or the day before, depending on who your major is. And like they have like all these small auditoriums around campus. Like you just go for your major, and that's the way. A separate ceremony where literally the whole ceremony is them just calling names. And like my major had like a couple hundred people, so it took forever for them to get through it. So most people just go to the big one with the keynote speaker and they skip the one where they call your name and you walk across the stage. So I skipped mine where they called my name to meet potential client at this like coffee shop over here. And like, that's why I like signed like to build a website for like 10, 11,000 bucks instead of going to my college graduation. I kind of remember being like, I would never be able to do this if it wasn't for weekender stuff and like being able to like make those sales calls and everything. I was cold calling all these people around here, like letting them know I build websites, had time to do it and stuff like that. And I never would have known how to engage with people if it wasn't for like the experiences I had there.
So it all paid off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, even still, I know we hire kids. We have this program at my work now where we hire like 30 to 40 new college grads, like fresh out of college grads every year. They're blown away by just like the corporate email stuff, or like having to book a meeting to like talk with people and stuff like that. Like they're like, oh, how do I do this? I was able to jump right in, like calling a meeting with other people, like setting up time like that, and like to actually discuss a topic and have an agenda and like get something done. Like I didn't have that learning curve, I guess, that I see a lot of other people going through.
Yeah.
Which, again, just gave me a huge advantage, I feel like.
I mean, I loved your ambition. That was always something I admired about you as a young kid. Do you remember the time you and I went and saw Angels and Airwaves?
Yeah, that was what I interviewed Tom for.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. I'm jealous of that moment.
Because if you email Blink's publicist, they never get back to you. But he was putting out that Angels and Airwaves movie, and Angels and Airwaves publicist sent out a thing like, this movie's going to be in theaters, da 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 da. If you're interested in talking to Tom about it, email me. I don't know, holy shit. I was on vacation, I believe, with my parents, like a couple weeks before college, and got that, set up the interview on vacation or whatever. And then, I remember like being like, well, now I gotta go see the movie because I just interviewed him about it. The movie kind of sucked, if I remember correctly. That's some dude in space alone and gets trapped out there.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but
It's like a
I
product.
mean, what I remember more about that day or night or whatever it was the time that you and I spent at Johnny Rockets.
Because I couldn't drink a beer.
So, so, yeah, you were underage.
Back now, we would
So
normally go to a bar or something, I assume, but
you and I went to Johnny Rockets,
the Rockets. So,
and that was my first time ever there, and it was bizarre. So like you're 10 years younger than I am, right? So like I feel weird just the fact that you're like probably what, like
I was probably
18?
18, yeah, 18 or 17.
So I'm 28, you're 18. This seems weird. And we're at Johnny Rockets and they're squirting like happy faces on this plate and ketchup. Oh man.
Yeah, I actually remember also we did a weekender session at Harvey's Lake, and we went to, I think it was Grotto, right? And you and Matt Shimoleski taught me how to properly pour beer, which I need to pour another one here. You tilt the glass, whatever. And I remember going to my first college party where there's like a keg in the basement and filling it. Everyone's getting these foamy ass cups filled with foam. And I'm like, oh my God, it works. Like tilt the glass and everything. And it was literally just the only time I ever saw there anyone taught me that was you guys at Grotto. Couldn't even drink
it. Your whole life is like you could thank your entire life like on the weekender and the people you met there. This is amazing.
Yeah, it was. I guess.
I mean,
I got like all the typical experiences you get from sports, like being on a team. If you're like a young guy on the sport team, you got guys 2 or 3 years older that kind of like give you all the advice or whatever. I got that from the weekender instead.
Like real life shit. Like, I mean, technically.
But yeah, it was even better. It wasn't like 18-year-old kids giving a 16-year-old advice about like where to, I don't know, go drink beer in the woods or something. Like it was like real shit.
I mean, technically, your wife can thank us and me specifically.
You specifically.
Because I mean, had it not been for me, maybe you would have. Maybe you would have.
You still have 2 years of college left.
Maybe you would have met somebody your freshman year, and had I not given you those words of wisdom, you would have been like, okay, this is the one, and you would have never met your wife.
Yeah.
So tell her that.
I feel like I really do feel like I got that. Like I said, I got an internship down here right away, and they just like pretty much never let me. I still work there today. Pretty much after the summer was over. That was a form of like summer internship, right? Like interviewed for it, and they were like, "You're going to work here for the summer, and in August when it's done, you go back to school or whatever." And that they were like, "Do you just want to keep doing this?" And paid me part time, and then the summer would come, I'd work full time again. It was pretty much like I had the weekender. I feel like where they were pretty much just like, "You guys pretty much like, if you want to keep doing it, great." And they were like, if you could pull it off at school, like, yeah, let's keep going. I don't think they would have done that had that been my first real work experience, but it felt like I was 3 years ahead of the game, basically.
Yeah. You mentioned that sessions at Harvey's Lake. Who was the band?
Strand of Oaks, a Philly band too. Philly
yes, guy. Strand of Oaks. That was probably the coolest one that we did of those.
I remember not being a fan of music necessarily, which is also I have some funny stuff about that, I guess. But yeah, I remember that was one of my first times really at Harvey's Lake and be like, "Whoa, this is awesome." I remember we did like weekend or deck games or party deck games or something at that grotto a couple times after, being really excited because I was like right on the lake. But Lelo was big, like, jam band guy. I feel like a lot of the stuff he covered. I remember Jackie Green was coming to the Jazz Cafe and him freaking out, putting him on the cover. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Am I supposed to know who this is? Now I'm like, I want to the Dead. I remember going to the Bog for Lelo's Highway 81 event. And somebody there was like talking to me, and like I had to leave when the real thing like I was there for like the pre-party or something, but then when the band started playing or something, I had to leave because I wasn't 21. I remember somebody, might have been Finnerty, I don't know, someone was asking me questions. They're like, "What kind of music do you like?" And I was like, Blink-182. I'm like, pop punk stuff. And they're like, "You're gonna be a Bog guy by the time you're older." I'm like, they're totally right. Now I can't listen to any of that stuff. I'm all into like the Dead, Bob Dylan, like all those Bog bands. I feel like jam band stuff. So it's kind of funny how that came around with age.
Yeah, you were in love with Blink-182 and Yellow Card.
I mean, who wasn't at 16, 17?
Dude, I still like those bands. I'm not gonna lie.
Actually, that's why my wife and I remember we were at a bar first night we met, and I remember like her asking like, "What's your favorite music thing?" And I'm like, not gonna lie, I'm like kind of into like this new stuff, like, but Blink-182 is probably my favorite. And her being like, "Mine too," and like she honestly says like that's why she kept talking to me.
You're lucky, Morgis.
Every once in a while we throw it on with a throwback, but
you're lucky you stayed true.
Yeah.
To your roots. How'd you guys meet? Just school?
Yeah, we were trying to remember now. Like common mutual friend, like had a birthday, so we're both there, and the whole like group of people, like 10, 15 people, were gonna go downtown to a bar, and we both just snuck off and went to a campus bar ourselves. And then we saw each other like every night after that for like a week. So that's how I knew I had it bad.
And you called me up and said, John, I got it bad.
Eh,
What do I do? Is it okay? Is it okay? Is it
but
time?
it was like very weird because we just pretty much started dating without officially like every night. It's like, you want to go to the bar and get a drink? Yeah, why not? It's like, holy shit. It was 21, but it was like to be drinking like every night out of the bar. It was like something new.
That's when you do it, man. That's when you do it.
I was thinking back. We used to do this thing called $2 Tuesdays. So they had like this bar had 37, 38 craft beers. That was another thing. Is like I got into beers basically because you guys were brewing your own. So everyone's got the cheap Coors Light, lager, or whatever. And I'm always like, I think I should get into beer. I feel like people that are older get into beer. So I always try to basically my strategy at that time, especially on $2 Tuesday when all 38 beers were $2. I just go for the highest 9%, 11% just to get them drunkest.
Get blackout, yeah.
And then like I get the ones that tasted like the IPAs that tasted like pine needles, I would call it. And so I just try to go from down. But then eventually, like I got into it. Now I'm like pretty much only drink IPAs. I want to look into brewing my own thing. I haven't really looked into it. Have you done that lately?
No, me and Matt, I think the last time we did that was 2010 or 11.
Man,
I think he's done it since then. He was like on a farm now, and like he's got like all the space to do shit like that. And that's so funny. You remember that? That's great.
You ferment it? How long do you do that?
I think but they did it for like 30 days.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm all
or longer. But
I told you, I listened to podcast on fermenting, so I got my rotten vegetables here.
Well, the problem is like the beer that we'd make all this beer, right? So it was a lot of fun. Like we hung out. We were, at one point we went from, because Matt used to live with AJ, so we did like we did some stuff outside, and then we kept it in the basement of their apartment complex. And then I think he moved out of there, so like we had the stuff on the back deck of my house, and then in my basement. But it's like, it's not the yield isn't worth like the time you spend. It's like you do all this work, and I mean, again, it's a great time with your friends and you're hanging out. Make a Saturday out of it. But again, you get older, and like your time to do like things is limited, and it's like, well, you know what? I'd rather just fucking pay for it.
Yeah, especially when you have so many good options these days.
Yeah, like almost too many.
I got like the fermentation book, and that's actually the first chapter before vegetables or anything. Like, try brewing your own beer. I'm like, it seems ambitious for your first project, but it's like a Popko did it. Maybe I can pull it off.
Oh, it's easy. It's easy.
Yeah. No, so yeah, I mean Philly's awesome for beer. One of our first trips together was to DC. I remember going to a bar in DC down there, one of the first bars outside of Philly I went to, and they had one beer on tap. It was like Modelo or something. I was like, holy shit, I gotta drink like rum or something now. Couldn't believe it. So we go to breweries all the time around here. Definitely take advantage of this being a beer city. I don't know. I feel like, again, another weekender treat. I would feel like I wouldn't have gotten a beer if it wasn't exposed to it there.
I love the fact that you're at a party. You're like, what the fuck? This is your first beer? This is your first time you poured a beer and just like come in and tilt it and look like a rock star.
The other tip, I guess, that this was not taught by you, but I learned was that if you just yell house cup, no one actually verifies if you live at the place or not, and they just let you through and skip the line and fill up your cup.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Morgis, I mean, I feel like if it wasn't for the Weekender, you would not be where you are today.
No, I wouldn't. No. So you guys were the only ones that really gave me a chance to keep going, I would say, because I remember, like I said, I emailed 97.9X, emailed some recording studios. No one had any part-time jobs for an ambitious high school kid, but you guys, and again, I worked at Odyssey Fitness to get my actual gas money and stuff. So I was pretty much doing it for fun, hoping that putting the time would lead to other stuff, would lead to networking, lead to a job. But it was cool to have an opportunity to do all that stuff. Like I said, I was doing events, sales, writing, like all that stuff. Pretty much whatever I was interested in, there was some type of avenue to work on it.
Well, real quick, Morgis, you mentioned the Odyssey Fitness. You met the uncle of my favorite musician,
Oh, that's right. He worked out there.
Pete Yorn. I actually tweeted at Pete Yorn, and he wrote back or replied back or retweeted or whatever the hell you do on Twitter. I don't fucking get
Forgot you were a big
involved.
Pete Run guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he actually responded to me. But yeah, so yeah, Pete Yorn's uncle, I guess, lives in Mountaintop.
Yeah, that's right. Jerry Yorn, that guy's name was.
What's his name?
Jerry Yorn.
Jerry Yorn.
Yeah, he was a regular. He sometimes would come twice a day. He was like dedicated.
Good for him. But speaking of dedicated, I joke around like, you are where you are today because of the Weekender. You are where you are today because of who you are and your work ethic and all that kind of stuff. Like you're a very rare breed. There's not many. You might be the only one that I've ever heard of that is 16, 17 years old and just like throwing themselves into an internship and an unpaid internship and just kind of learning the ropes. And obviously you doing that has paid off for you. So I mean, while we were, I think, hopefully good teachers and a good guidance, I mean, you made it what it was. So I mean, I
Okay.
joke around about the Weekender doing it for you, but it was definitely you doing it for you. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it was really just fear of, oh damn, you got to actually figure out what you want to do in life.
well, it's a shame that I mean I'm still like I didn't know that before about your teacher kind of telling you to do that. I mean that's great because I mean our brains don't even fully develop until we're 25. Like how can you figure out at 18 what you're going to do for the rest of your life?
And I mean, like I said, it worked because that's that 92% change. I mean, I went in trying to do general communications and ended with computer science. So I did change, but like use all that prior work like didn't just go to waste in any sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. It was cool too, just being like I remember actually one thing that kind of scared me about the industry was Sophia from WNEP. This was like again 10 years ago. I don't know if she's still there. Um, she when I was doing Go Lackawanna stuff, she would be there for WNEP covering a lot of things. I remember asking her, being like, I think I'm gonna be going to Philly for college. How's that market different than like somewhere up here? And she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, I try to get into many markets, and the only one I could get to is here. And she told me like where Scranton, Wilkes-Barre is, it's like market 100 and something, in the country. And she's like, Philadelphia is like 3 or 4. She's like, she kind of warned me. She's like, all your experience here is like going to be great. But she's like, it may not mean much down there. And I was like, oh shit. She's like, you might be going up against someone who did 2 or 3 internships throughout college at like some Philly company or something. And I was like, oh boy. So I was like very nervous when I went down there that I was going to be starting from like zero again. That didn't end up being the case. There was a lot of called transferable skills.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I'm really happy for you. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
I'm proud that you took my lessons or our lessons and applied them to your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I did have one question for you. So I know you've been on this kick about the weekend. You're like, oh, it's been the Bible, right? Do you get the sense that do you think it would work today?
Not in a print form. Definitely not. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Well, I mean, I know it wouldn't work in a print form just because like that's not how people consume, especially people who are, of the age at the target market, that.
And of course, I mean, non-COVID times, like.
Well, that too. Yeah. I mean, shit. I mean, can you imagine that even like if we were, if it was back in 2005 and the world shut down, like I couldn't imagine. But I mean, the thing about the Weekender was, and I said this before, they wanted to push us into a digital direction and online, and I think that's how Sessions was kind of born. And Mike and Nikki were doing videos called the Weekly Dose, and Rachel and the marketing side was, and I was including that too. We were doing Party Favors where we would talk about there's a video component of the print product talking about what was going on that weekend and where to go, who to see.
$0 budget, right?
Yeah, there's no budget. It's like, go do this. And it's like, okay. So, I mean, I think we did the best that we could with, what we had. But I mean, that I mean, the Weekender in general never had a budget for anything, even when it was profitable. Like, but that's how this industry is. Like, print and even like radio and shit like that. Like,
Right.
and from what I've experienced, I could be wrong, but from my experience, they just don't know how to utilize and move forward with what they have and build upon it and put money to it. So like, I mean, stations will flip formats because, oh, well, this isn't working. We need to change the format because we don't have the listenership or whatever it might be. Well, how do you reach your listeners outside of having a radio station? Like, how do you market yourselves? Because there's so many times that these media companies who are, they tell, let's say Matt Morgis, you have a website development firm. Well, how do you tell people about your business, Matt? You need to advertise. You got to put your ad in the paper. You got to put it on the radio. You got to put it on billboards. You got to do this. You got to do that. But if you turn that question around on them and said, well, Mr. Radio Station, how do you reach new listeners? How do you do that? Where do you advertise? Whoa, no, don't get crazy, Matt Morris. Like, we don't know how to do that. We don't do that. We don't spend our own money. You kidding me?
I was going to ask that. It probably made you pretty resourceful for this, right? I imagine you have a scrappy budget for kicking this project off, and
Yeah, zero.
you got to be resourceful. I mean, that's my own, doing the freelance websites and stuff. That's what I did. I put, I think, $200 in the bank account and started. I was like, all right, put no more of my own money in, make build websites, get the money, save it, etc. And I feel like all that again came from Weekender having no budgets trying to do this stuff. I'm trying to do Weekender sessions and stuff. Just even buy pizza for the bands was hard.
Yeah, I mean, and it's I feel weird too because like I've been built to do that, like to cut corners and which is I think it's good, but it's also bad because it makes me sometimes feel cheap.
It makes me wonder. So this is like I did this meetup like before COVID. I was trying to do like a monthly, and this also probably should came from the Weekender stuff. I was like, it'd be cool if we did a monthly tech meetup at the office. We have this cool tech office. We're always talking about, just like you said, how can we get the word out about us, right? It's hard to recruit and hire in tech. So then what if we do a meetup where we have like some interesting talks each month? We supply food and just bring a bunch of those people here if they can see the office, et cetera. And like, just, I don't know, at least get the name out. And the company's like, sure, here's like $300 to use every month. And let us know if you need more. Buy rent a PA system, buy beer, get it catered, etc. I was like, holy smokes! I'm like, if the Weekender just gave us $200-300, like $200-300 made all the difference of that being a scrappy event that could work and was thrown together versus like, wow, I can just ask someone, here's some money, or how much does this cost? Let me pay you to do this, and it gets done right. I was like, damn, if we had sessions or anything with even $250 a month or something, like it was already, I feel like, really good. I don't want to like put down anything we did because I'm really proud of it still to this day.
You're right.
If we just had a little bit of support, oh God.
Yeah. And I would feel badly if I didn't like you mentioned this project, and I have to thank Keith Perks did my logo design for this whole thing. So shout out to him. He did a great job. And
I was gonna say, I think that's why so many of us stayed friends and stuff, because we had a band together and like
yeah,
real, not bargain and trade, but like there was a lot of that going on. Hey, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, and then you kind of made those connections and relationships, and it was more than just like again, everyone I build, even people I build websites for now, it's strictly business. Like they're paying me money. If they stop paying me, I don't care. And like if I stop delivering for them, they have no problem dropping me for someone else. Where with all the business and stuff we kind of did up there, I feel like it was much more personal, much more connection.
Well, in any PA, we take care of our own, and shout out to Justin from Ionic Development who helps me with the hosting of the podcast and making this sound the best it can. Since it's via Zoom, so we lose a little bit of the audio quality, and he helps me make it the best it can. So thank you to him. But yeah, I mean, and Joey Z from I don't know if you came across Joey Z, but he was like an intern for us too at the Weekender, but he built the website for me. So thank you to him. Yeah, I mean, I felt so like weird, but I mean, they also came to me and said, "How can we help too?" So I mean, as much as I asked them for help, they also asked how they could help. So, but yeah, you're right. It's just like you learn how to be resourceful, I guess you could say is a good word. But it's also sucks because you're like, I have no money.
Well, yeah, but I mean, anyone start, I'm starting, if you start your own thing, I think that's expected. But the weekender, you'd assume has some
They
money.
had, yeah. I mean, they had a couple bucks to play with.
I feel
Especially, I
like
mean, if that's the direction they want to go into, it's like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, is if that's what they wanted to push, and it was, I feel like we proved it to be successful, and maybe not. Because I heard Mike talk about sessions. I guess never technically made $1, so maybe it wasn't successful in their eyes in that sense. One thing I've learned over the years was to start really thinking commercially too. Right, everyone's got to make money in some sense. So
right. But also, I mean, like they weren't losing money on that. I mean, they
right,
were gaining exposure. They were gaining like, probably readers and viewers. Like, I don't know. And that's going back to media companies in this market, especially like they just they're not good at promoting themselves. Like, we put an ad. This is my favorite thing. You know, um, let's say it's the Weekender. It's like, well, we put an ad about the Weekender in the Weekender. But that's what we did. That's how we advertised it. And it's like, but you already like the readers are already there. You have those. How are you reaching new people?
yeah,
Oh wait, well we don't. What are you crazy? That'll cost money.
yeah.
Like we don't want to do that. Like we put an ad in the Weekender. It's like, but it just blows my mind. Like same with radio stations and shit like that. It's like, there's one station that has or is owned by a print company as well. Well, we
So
put an ad in the paper. We put an ad on the air.
I think did you have the person who started the weekend on, right?
Yes.
And I feel like did he mention something about like if you did it today, you'd have to be very event based.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the way it goes. I remember one of the stories I was working on there. Tried to work. This was like my one bit into like real journalistic stuff that didn't come from Go Lackawanna. Because Go Lackawanna had to do some real like not to get off topic here. I want to remember what I was about to say. But Go Lackawanna, I remember getting a couple stories from Chris where he's like, call this person, call this person. I call them, basically would hang up on me or something. It's like, great, call their boss now. Or like call this person. And like he would have you dig. And I learned that's really what like journalism is like when you ask a band or a publicist for an interview, like they're happy to give it to you. It was a very easy exchange, right? Especially if they're touring and promoting something, like it pretty much was like 2-sentence email. They go, yes, here's the time. You have 10 minutes on the phone with them, go. When you're trying to dig up a story about someone who spray painted something or a court case or something, they're not willingly giving this info. And you got to like call their family and friends and really try to dig for some of this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is a little more uncomfortable. And I remember trying to do a story. This is how I tie back. And remember, I was going to say, I remember trying to do a story for Lello that I pitched to him about like, why do cover bands make so much more money than original artists? I don't know if you remember me digging. And I remember asking all these bands, and they're like, no. I'm like, great, I'm working on a story about this. Can I like quote you with some of this stuff? Oh, no. Cannot put my name or use my stuff at all. And I was like, oh shit. Because I remember it was mind-boggling, feeling like a lot of these artists, like, I don't know if it was just cool to me because I was around people that created music that I feel like I never would be able to do myself. Or if I felt like, oh, they're actually good or some combination of both. But I was just like, we have all these bands around here making original music. How come they can't play it? Every time they're playing, it's always just a million cover songs, and they maybe work in one of their originals, but most of the time never. I was blown away that was the case. And I tried to do a story on it and get to like kind of get to the bottom of it. Never did. I mean, I don't want to like throw out any hot takes or anything here, but like, why do people just not give a shit? Like, do you think it seems so weird? Like anytime there's any new original stuff, it seems just not to like hit with the audience as much as the covers.
Yeah. So people, I mean, what I think it is, people like familiarity. They want to hear songs that they know and that they can sing to and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, a local musician who's doing their own stuff, like they don't know it. They don't know how to appreciate it. Like,
I guess that's what would blow my mind because I'm like, I would love to listen to the new, like Miz was one of my favorites because I was a big guitar guy. So like Miz was my thing. I would listen to all those songs and learn them so that I would be interested to go see him. And like oftentimes I go see him and he'd play cover songs and stuff. Oh god damn. I didn't know, it was like always hard to find his original gigs or something. You really had to seek him out. Yeah.
Well, people, especially like, on a Friday, Saturday night, they want to, unwind after a long week. They want to dance, and they want to sing. And how do you do that? It's with songs that you know, and it's stuff that
Yeah.
you're familiar with. So it's like and I mean,
So is it still, my question basically was going to be like, is it still like that? Because this was again 10 years ago. So has it flipped a little bit because there's a lot of focus on local music with between like what you were doing, like with your old show, and now this. Obviously, other stations were doing local music stuff. So it seems like there's more of a focus on it now than when I was.
yeah, I mean, I think so a lot of things have happened. Like, back in like 2008, 9, 10, there was a little bit of a shift in the entertainment world. A lot of venues, A, they closed, and B, they didn't want to pay full bands because they couldn't afford to. So they started playing, or they started paying DJs. And I feel like, the last 3 or 4 years, this area specifically has kind of, um, well, started to make a comeback. There was venues that focused on original material that opened their doors to artists that played original songs, and there was the radio show that I had, 979X had one, the River had one, has one, whatever you want to call it. And Rich from NEPA scene, it's a big focus on local music. I mean, it was just always, and also too, I don't want to forget the fact that a lot of musicians today support each other. So it's more of a community effort than, back in like 2005, 6, 7. If you were a original local band, like it was cutthroat. Like they didn't get along. Like they were like, we're better than you. We're going to be the next one, signed out of the area. And that's kind of all there was to it. But these days, there's a lot of collaborations. There's artists working together on songs. It's just a different time.
Yeah, yeah. That was something interesting because I saw these bands. Like I remember when I was looking at the Job Shadow stuff, and I found a lot of these bands, which led me to the Weekender and 97.9 and all that for the job shadowing. They all had like original songs, their MySpace and they auto play, and it was like their own thing. And then you saw their schedule, and it was always 10 at night or whatever, so I was never able to go. And 21 plus, and I just assumed they were always playing those original songs. So when I actually got in, like from working the internship and stuff, and saw that they were all covers, I was like, whoa, my whole perception was like kind of turned upside down. Uh, I don't know. And then I realized like, oh, okay, so this isn't the scene I thought it was, with a bunch of like creative musicians all playing their own stuff. Like they're doing that sort of, but when they play their gigs.
Yeah, well, that was also, I mean, they would play those gigs to help fund their
Well, that's what I'm
original.
saying. Yeah, they had to play those gigs to get the money to then pay for the studio time, et cetera. And I was just like, wow, this is just not, my original perception of it is just not the case, I guess.
Yeah.
Again, another like don't meet your heroes moment, I guess. Like I thought like it was, yeah, I was like a high school kid looking online, seeing like all these MySpace pages, thinking it was this whole big scene. And then you get into it, it's a little different. It's like, oh, but it all comes down to like money really too, right? Like if that was what was paying the bills, you can't really blame a band for taking a 5K check to play Night of Covers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny how you talk about perception, and it's funny how when you're young and you think about things, and oh, this band's on the radio, they must be rolling, and you see them, they're pumping a van, and it's just amazing. Like, I don't know, until you kind of are in it, you don't understand how the sausage is made.
Yeah, I think one thing I learned too is that no matter how, even down here in Philly, when you really get into a field or like any type of like, doesn't even have to be a niche, you realize everyone in that industry, whatever, knows each other. Like, I don't know, like in those days, like if someone was promoting a concert, you probably knew who it was. And I feel like even down here, it's only a handful of people really in that business doing that stuff. So you kind of learned like quickly, like you don't really want to burn many bridges because you're going to be, everyone knows each other. And like, even if you burn one bridge, that person's going to talk to someone else and like you might have a bad time. But yeah, I mean, perceptions is crazy. I remember when I was changing my major my freshman year, all I wanted to do was work for Google or Facebook. And now it's like the last place I'd freaking work. They're like, oh yeah, they have daycare there. They do your laundry. I'm like, that sounds awesome. I'm like, oh, that's because they never want you to leave.
Right.
They're just trying to trap you there.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. That was I feel like you guys definitely helped me grow up for sure.
Well, I'm glad we could
much quicker than
part of that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was like I said, you guys were all like big brothers, big sisters. And I knew when I went down to college too, but I could always reach out if anything, if I ever needed anything, which was really cool, to get developed.
Well, Morgus, if you ever need an old man's advice, you know where to find me.
Yep. We should do it on the podcast.
Advice with Popko.
Yeah. So what's the plan for the pod? You're doing these weekender files, and then I know you interview a bunch of local bands, but
Yeah, I mean,
focus on one thing, right? So you're kind of just trying to go.
so the reason I created it was because my radio show that I had got, they keep saying, well, they said it was on hiatus. To me, that meant canceled. And I always thought that I'd get canceled because I did something wrong. But I feel like in the 3 years that I had that over 3 years that I had that radio show, I did more advertising and promotion for that station for $0 than they did for themselves in like 10 years. So, there was that, and I feel like I built something for that long, for them to throw it away,
Right.
and not have a real plan to move it forward, because I still think it had a place, in that cluster of radio stations, but it is what it is. And then I look back at my time at the Weekender, and the reason that came to an end was by no fault of my own. New ownership, change of the times and how people consume media and entertainment and all that kind of stuff. But again, that ended because I left the Weekender on my own, but I left for a reason. But again, it was something I live, breathe every day. I keep saying to this day, I at one point I would have got a tattoo of the Weekender logo on my body, because that's how in love and proud I was of being there. But that ended. And I said, I'm tired of building something for other people.
Yeah.
And I still want to have a platform for specifically local music and musicians in this area to use as, a way to get their, music out, and how they kind of started and where they plan on going. But I don't want to pigeonhole myself just for local musicians. I want to, open that up to local business owners, or, artists that are, tattoo artists or barbers or anything like that. But I also don't want to limit it to just NAPA. I think that's the focus, but the internet is, as we talk about, worldwide. www. But
Popko Project. So I guess one thing I was going to ask is, I'm sure I think I know the answer. The answer is going to be yes. But like, do you feel you could reach more people than on the radio show with this?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I hope to.
Obviously, if you said no, there'd be something wrong. But it's pretty cool because, yeah. So, I guess I'd imagine it's scary in some sense because you're totally in control of it. So, if it doesn't quite reach the height that you want it to, right, then you have no one to blame but yourself. But at the same time, if it does, you have no one to blame but yourself, which is a good
thing. And also when I talked to you about doing this, you're like, oh, I don't know if people will watch or listen. And it's like, to an extent, I'm not doing this to pay my bills. I'm doing this to create something that, for me, and to have a documentation of, the life that I've lived, and hopefully you get something out of it as well. But if it goes somewhere, great. Ideally I'd love to have, a studio where I could sit one-on-one, face-to-face with somebody. And I've had offers from people, but we're still in a world that doesn't encourage, that kind of life. So I appreciate those offers, but right now I just don't feel like that's the right move. Plus, we could zoom in people in those studios like we're doing now, but I think having a studio, you're kind of limited to planning stuff out really far in advance. And this allows me to be very flexible. And, I just did a thing, and the band is in Philly. It's a band called Cuddle Drug. I found out about their stuff on a Sunday, and I did a podcast with them on a Tuesday, and they were doing a live stream on a Saturday and releasing an album, and any money raised from that album was going to go towards the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So that happened quick. I found out on Sunday, did it on Tuesday to promote the event on Saturday. So I wouldn't have that kind of flexibility in that all that if I had a studio. So I mean, this is cool too. But from an audio standpoint, it's not the best. But
I mean, mine's probably gonna be a lot worse than yours. Yours sound really good with the mic. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool because you have the flexibility to kind of be uncensored and like go in any direction you want. You don't have to like you said, pigeonhole into one thing. But you get different people's stories. Like I know you're not trying to copy Rogan, but that's one of the cool things is like he'll have some PhD scientist on, then he has a mushroom hunter on, and then a UFC fighter. So you can kind of go in and out, and it's cool to see someone I know doing that stuff. Pushing it forward.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not that you need any recommendations from me, but it'd be really cool to see you. I don't know, like John. John Fetterman.
Who?
John Fetterman
from Switchfoot?
No. He's Pennsylvania's lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
Running for U.S. Senate, got sleeves of tattoos.
Yes.
He's hanging a weed flag from his balcony at the Harrisburg Capitol.
Big advocate for marijuana.
Yeah, he'd be an awesome guest. I feel like, and I feel like he'd be like my mind for the weekend. Like he's promoting himself now because he just.
Do you have a connection?
So this is where I was getting. And again, this is like we're deep in the podcast here. Guy that Tara went to school with. Tara's a social worker, and a guy that she went to school with also just announced he's a state rep from Philly. Just announced a Senate thing, and I was like, damn, it'd be awesome to have hear Fetterman on the podcast and then hear that guy on the podcast because we're like, who the hell are we gonna vote for? She really supports that guy. She's a big Fetterman guy. Now she's torn. She's like, oh no, I have to pick one. And like as we're talking here, I'm like, Popko would be awesome to have him talk to each one of them for an hour and just hear those, candidates just talk for real instead of this town, the canned town hall questions with their answers.
Yeah.
Like I remember hearing the politicians on Rogan and just being like, oh, this is awesome. Like you hear so much of like their real thoughts on stuff and their explanations and stuff.
Well, that's if you had a radio show or even like an article in the newspaper, like you don't have an infinite amount of time or space. So it's like, it's the cookie cutter stuff. It's like, from a band standpoint, it's, how do you guys start? How do you get the name? Where's your next show? It's all this boring bullshit that, is important, but like,
yeah,
it's not entertaining. It's not informative. It's just like, oh yeah, so-and-so's doing a tour and they have to make the stops and they're talking to this guy and that guy.
Several articles, I'd get awesome quotes. But because you only have 400, 500 words and you got to treat each article as if no one's heard of the band before, you got to put all that bullshit in. And by the time you get to the end, you can't get any interesting stuff. So
yeah,
this form is really cool. And typically the ones at least I listen to are all like, big national level. So they don't have people on, like, as you said, local business owners and stuff going through what they're going through now, talking about it at that level. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I'm excited to see where you take it. I know you're only a few months in.
Yeah, this will be, I think I just posted episode 21 today. So, we'll see what happens.
I have one podcast I listen to down here. He's also the program director for a Philly radio station. He said you don't have a podcast until you have at least 100 episodes.
So, 100? Okay.
79 more to go if you live by that rule. So
20% there.
But yeah, he said you don't really have a podcast. You don't really know what your podcast is or something like that until you got 100 episodes. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best of luck. I hope you hit 100 soon.
I hope so too.
It'd be really funny because you said you were going back to listen to the Rogan ones. It's gonna be funny coming back and listening to these when you actually do have a studio and stuff. And you're like, oh wow, we were zooming in COVID times. You didn't have a mic.
Yeah, hopefully it gets to that point, but we'll see. But thanks for being a part of it. I do appreciate it, and I'm like a proud big brother.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I
appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I think only I'll find out if even my mother listens to this, but it's a good little time capsule to have. Like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Once you brought that up, I was like, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah. So tell Tara I said hello and best of luck with you guys, finding out where you want to live and your
wedding.
wedding plans and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
If you need advice that may be the wrong advice, I'll still be happy to give it to you.
Yep. Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
All right,
Later.
thanks. See ya.